Moment for God.
A moment with God can change everything. Listen, reflect, and be blessed. Here's today's scripture.
Your exploration of one verse, Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 11.
That's the one.
And it reads, "May the Lord, the God of your ancestors, increase you 1,000 times and bless you as he has promised."
Yeah, just one verse. It's just packed, absolutely packed with layers of meaning.
Right.
So our mission, our goal for this dive is really to unpack blessing and increase.
It really emphasizes this isn't just like a passive wish or a simple prayer.
No, it's more active.
It's framed as this dynamic declaration, divine multiplication, reflecting God's active desire, his want to bless his people abundantly.
And spoken by Moses, the leader, voicing this intense longing for God's favor, that exponential favor on the Israelites.
Exactly. And the material you shared points out how this verse speaks volumes about God's actual nature.
Yes, that he's a God of more than enough. His blessing isn't just, step-by-step linear growth.
Okay.
It also highlights its potential as, well, a huge motivational tool,
Yeah.
especially in tough times. And of course, that deep connection to generational blessings.
So let's dig into that first point. The source raises God's nature and this divine multiplication idea.
The scale, the sheer scale of the increase.
1,000 times.
Yeah, 1,000 times. It's presented not just as adding more, but as exponential, a kind of geometric leap. It's the source's way, really, of showing that God's desire isn't for just a little bit of blessing, but for multiplication on a level that's way beyond human effort or, natural processes.
Okay.
It taints this picture of God actually delighting in radical increase for his people, which aligns with the huge promises he's made throughout history.
Wow. Okay. So the source really flags that, not addition, multiplication, that massive scale. It definitely shifts the perspective.
It does.
But then looking at the material you shared, it seems to pivot pretty quickly to the motivational side. How does understanding this picture of God actually impact us, especially when things, don't feel like they're multiplying?
Right. And that motivational point is key. So this verse can serve as like an anchor for faith, encouraging you, the listener, to trust in God's timing and his supernatural provision, even when circumstances feel like lack or maybe transition.
So a reminder.
It's a powerful reassurance, really, that God's ability to bless and increase isn't limited by your limitations or your current situation. It's based on his own nature and his promises.
Okay.
That focusing on this declaration, meditating on it, can actively fight off discouragement and that scarcity thinking.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like remembering who is ultimately controlling the multiplication button, so to speak.
Sort of, yeah.
Now, here's where another layer comes in based on your notes.
Yeah.
The generational thing.
Yeah.
Moses specifically mentions the God of your ancestors. How does the source connect that phrase to the promise of increase?
Ah, yes, this is critical. The source really emphasizes this piece.
Okay.
By bringing in the God of your ancestors, the verse isn't just talking about the people right there in that moment.
The broader.
Exactly. It ties the promised present blessing, future blessing, directly to a lineage of faith. It's rooted in God's covenant, his relationship with past generations.
Right.
God's faithfulness, his desire to bless, it isn't confined to one lifetime. It spans across time.
Interesting.
It really underscores the importance of legacy, spiritual heritage. That faithfulness today actually has implications for generations still to come. It carries the potential for this thousandfold blessing forward.
Okay, so not just a personal promise for me right now, but part of a much bigger story. A continuation tied into God's long game with his people.
Precisely.
All right, so putting that all together then, God's nature is a multiplier, the power it has to motivate faith, and this multi-generational thread. What's the overall mindset this verse encourages?
Well, the material you shared really brings it home by linking this verse to cultivating a specific posture, a specific way of thinking and acting.
Okay, like what?
It calls for a mindset of abundance, definitely not scarcity, rooted in God's huge capacity.
Right.
It encourages responsible stewardship, taking care of what you do have, recognizing it comes from Him, and it's subject to His increase.
Makes sense.
And crucially, it calls for a readiness to receive, an expectation. Believing God is willing and able to pour out His promised blessings, often in supernatural ways, when there's obedience and trust.
It's pretty amazing how much is packed into one short verse when you really dig in based on these notes.
It really is.
We've seen how the source presents this as a picture of God's desire for exponential blessing, not just simple addition.
That multiplication factor.
We've explored its weight as a motivational force, pushing us to trust in supernatural provision, especially when things look bleak naturally.
That anchor.
And we've touched on that really powerful generational connection, rooting the future in the faithfulness of the past and the present.
And it all comes back to actively cultivating that mindset. Abundance, good stewardship, and just being ready, genuinely ready to step into the blessings God has promised.
So given this deep dive into your material on Deuteronomy 1.11, really understanding God's desire for that thousandfold increase and how it connects generationally, here's something for you, the listener, to consider as you continue exploring your notes. How does this vision, this picture of supernatural multiplication and a multi-generational legacy, how does it practically shape your perspective on the future and the specific legacy you are building right now?